Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered if we're truly alone? What if you saw something you couldn't explain? Well, today we are re-diving into a story that has puzzled researchers and fascinated the public for over 60 years. It's a story so compelling, it became the blueprint for nearly every alien abduction account that followed. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our deep dives into the unknown. Now, let's set the scene. It's September 19th, 1961. Betty and Barney Hill, an interracial couple from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, are driving home from a vacation in Niagara Falls. They're cruising through the White Mountains, late at night, under a sky full of stars. Betty, an amateur astronomer, spots a bright light in the sky. At first, she thinks it's a satellite or a shooting star. But this light is different. It's moving erratically, getting closer and closer. Barney, ever the skeptic, pulls the car over to get a better look with his binoculars. What he sees sends a chill down his spine. It's not a plane. It's not a helicopter. He describes it as a silent, rotating, pancake-shaped craft with a row of windows. And through those windows, he sees figures. They're not human. Terrified, he jumps back in the car, yelling to Betty, "They're going to capture us." He floors it, trying to escape. The next thing they remember is hearing a series of strange buzzing sounds. And then, they're 35 miles further down the road, with almost 2 hours of their memory completely gone. They arrive home dazed and confused, much later than they should have. Their watches have stopped working. Barney's shoes are scuffed and torn, and Betty's dress is ripped and covered in a strange pink powder. They feel off. Something profound had happened, but they couldn't remember what. In the days and weeks that followed, the strangeness continued. Betty started having vivid, recurring nightmares. In these dreams, she and Barney were taken aboard the craft by small, gray-skinned beings with large, wraparound eyes. They were subjected to physical examinations on cold, metallic tables. The beings communicated with her telepathically. In one dream, a leader figure showed her a star map, a three-dimensional projection of dots and lines, indicating their home system and trade routes. Betty tried to ask where they were from, but they told her it wouldn't make sense to her. Meanwhile, Barney was suffering from severe anxiety, ulcers, and high blood pressure. His doctor, concerned about the psychological toll this experience was taking, referred the Hills to Dr. Benjamin Simon, a respected Boston psychiatrist specializing in hypnotherapy. The couple had initially kept their story private, only reporting the UFO sighting to a local Air Force base. But the persistent anxiety and missing time were too much to bear. Over several months in 1964, Dr. Simon conducted separate hypnotic regression sessions with both Betty and Barney. He was skeptical, initially suspecting the story was a shared delusion or a fantasy created by Betty's dreams. But under hypnosis, their stories emerged, independent of each other, yet remarkably consistent. Barney's account was filled with fear and resistance. He recounted being dragged onto the ship by these non-human entities. He described them taking samples of his skin, hair, and nails. He recalled a long needle being inserted into his stomach, a procedure that terrified him. His emotional distress during these sessions was so real, so visceral, that it was hard for Dr. Simon to dismiss. Betty's hypnotic recollections mirrored her nightmares, but with even more detail. She described the beings' grayish skin, their small noses and mouths, and their large, cat-like eyes that seemed to bore into her soul. She calmly recounted the physical examination, including a similar needle procedure to Barney's, which she was told was a type of pregnancy test. She also recalled her conversation with the leader and her viewing of the star map in stunning detail. What makes this case so compelling isn't just their testimony. There's physical evidence, too. The strange pink powder on Betty's dress was analyzed, but its composition was unidentifiable at the time. The scuffs on Barney's shoes indicated he had been dragged, And then there's the star map. Years later, in 1968, an amateur astronomer and teacher named Marjorie Fish took on the challenge of identifying the star system from Betty's drawing. Using data from the Gliese star catalog, which wasn't even published until 1969, she built three-dimensional models of nearby sun-like stars. After years of painstaking work, she found a match. The pattern Betty had drawn perfectly matched the perspective of the Zeta Reticuli system, as seen from a specific vantage point in space. The odds of this being a coincidence were astronomical. Zeta Reticuli is a binary star system about 39 light-years from Earth. Could this be the home of the Hills captors? Skeptics, of course, have offered alternative explanations. Some argue that the Hills misidentified a conventional aircraft or an astronomical phenomenon. They suggest that Betty's dreams, influenced by science fiction of the era, planted the seeds of the abduction story, which Barney then absorbed. Dr. Simon himself ultimately concluded that the abduction narrative was likely a fantasy, a way for their minds to cope with the initial frightening UFO sighting. But this explanation doesn't quite fit all the pieces. Why were their memories so similar, yet recalled separately under hypnosis? How do you explain the physical evidence, the stopped watches, the damaged clothing, the 2 hours of missing time on a well-traveled highway? And what about that star map? How could Betty Hill, with her limited astronomical knowledge, have conceived of a star pattern that would later be verified by complex scientific models? The Betty and Barney Hill case opened the floodgates. It was the first widely publicized alien abduction story in the United States, and it set the template for thousands that would follow. The gray alien, with its large head, slender body, and big black eyes, became the archetype for extraterrestrial visitors. The elements of their story, the UFO sighting, the missing time, the abduction, the medical examination, and the return with fragmented memories, have been echoed in countless other accounts around the world. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the story of Betty and Barney Hill remains one of the most significant and perplexing cases in the history of ufology. It's a human story at its core, a story of two ordinary people thrust into an extraordinary, life-altering experience. They weren't seeking fame or fortune. In fact, they tried to keep their story private for years. They were a respected couple in their community, and their testimony was consistent and heartfelt. They maintained their story was true until their deaths. So, what do you think happened on that lonely road in the White Mountains back in 1961? Was it a shared dream, a psychological phenomenon, or was it a genuine close encounter of the third kind? Did Betty and Barney Hill really get a glimpse into a world beyond our own? Let me know your theories in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend who loves a good mystery, and don't forget to subscribe for more explorations of the strange and unexplained. Until next time, keep looking up.